Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 drama, and this is a juicy one. Fernando Alonso has claimed that Hamilton's world titles are not as valuable as Verstappen's because he only had to fight his own teammate, opening the door to a classic clapback from Hamilton that he absolutely goes for, and it's all kicking off. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you are new as always. We're going to explain it all today. Firstly, this article came up from Eric Van Haren. Fernando Alonso talked to Eric about, what's happened the last year or so, and one of the articles was pretty spicy, and it was talked about at the top of many newspapers. I think even Alonso mentioned that he would like to team up with Verstappen to do Le Mans and stuff like this as well in the future. Now, this was one of the key quotes that was mentioned here. We'll see the raw quote here in a second, but effectively he was talking about Max's titles, Hamilton's titles, and saying that Max's titles are worth more than Hamilton's. I have a lot of respect for Lewis, but it is different when you win 7 world championships having only had to fight against your teammate. Now, as I say, this opens the very obvious door that Hamilton absolutely and unexpectedly goes right through. So this is what Alonso said. He was talking about the Qatar Grand Prix last season where he was back on the podium. Said a lot of fun. I was there next to Max and Lewis too. This year, Max is very dominant, and at some point he was able to cruise to the world title. Last season, it was different. I thought he outperformed Lewis in the end, and I think he is a worthy champion. I also have lots of respect for Lewis. Still, it's different when you win 7 world titles. When you've only had to fight with your teammates, then I think that a championship has less value than if you have fewer titles, but if you had to compete against other drivers with equal or even better machinery is effectively what he's getting at here. So effectively suggesting that Hamilton's titles are less valuable than Verstappen's. Obviously people would dispute that, and as he goes on to say, in 2005, 2006 I had a good start and I was able to create a lead. Then others may have had a better car, but I was able to manage that gap. I never had to fight with my teammate Giancarlo Fisichella to win the title. I also didn't see Max fight Perez or Albon to win races, but Schumacher mainly fought with his teammate Barrichello to become champion 5 times in a row, and Hamilton with Rosberg and Valtteri Bottas. That's different, I think, compared to what he thinks about his own titles and what he thinks about Max's. Now, these two, of course, go way back, and the drama really originated in 2007 when Alonso, fresh off becoming a 2-time world champion, was paired up at McLaren with rookie Lewis Hamilton, and it turned out that Hamilton beat him that season in the championship, and Hamilton almost won the championship that season in what would have been the first time ever a rookie driver had won a championship in their first season since, I suppose, the inaugural season, the first ever season of Formula 1. Hamilton was 1 point off if it hadn't been for all the, the China pit lane drama. So ever since this moment, it was getting feisty that season and has really been since then between them. And there's no secret that these guys aren't necessarily the best of friends. And Alonso will often throw jabs Hamilton's way from time to time, let's say. These were the results of that season, actually, just to put on screen. Well, I mentioned the fact that, okay, Alonso says that the 2 championships of Verstappen has won more valuable than Hamilton's. I think when you look at it, I'm not necessarily sure that adds up, just because even if you take his logic, Hamilton's first let's say you look at Hamilton's first 2 titles. Back in 2008, he won by 1 point up against Felipe Massa. That wasn't fighting his teammate, that was fighting another team. So that, you could argue, is very similar, the 1 point to Verstappen against Hamilton last year. And then Hamilton's title in 2014, his second one up against Rosberg. Mercedes by far had the quickest car, but he beat his teammate Rosberg for the title that season. And you could argue Verstappen's done a similar thing this year, because with Ferrari falling off, it seems more and more likely that it might end up being Verstappen, Perez, P1, P2 in this year's Drivers' Championship, and therefore all Verstappen arguably had to do is be the stronger Red Bull driver, and he was going to win this year's championship. Now, in my opinion, that doesn't take away anything from the achievements, but Alonso is the one that's raised the question about relative value of titles, and of course, well, he says that if you just beat your teammate for it, it doesn't matter all that much. Now, he actually went on to say this, which I thought was quite interesting, really, and again, please, all the titles are amazing, well-deserved and inspiring, incomparable to each other, and let's enjoy champions and legends of our current time. Tired of the continuous search for headlines, let's just enjoy them. And the obvious thing to this is like, well, you did just say that. I mean, it's not like he didn't say it and people are searching for headlines. He did literally say that, the championship has less value if you're just fighting your teammates. So, I don't know, he was the one who said it in the first place. He tried to backtrack a bit, maybe fearing that further repercussions were going to come in. And obviously, Hamilton caught wind of this and heard the fact that Alonso was having a jab at his titles and his ability, and he comes out with the following tweet last night to 230,000 likes on Twitter, and he basically just hit him with the lil bro. Like, he tweets this out from the Indianapolis, the US Grand Prix 2007, where Hamilton at this point had already arrived on the scene, but this was a great tussle between both McLarens for the victory. Hamilton defended mightily, came out on top against Alonso, and really proved against the 2-time champ that the rookie was not messing around and he was here to stay. And this is where people really thought after this race, damn, this Hamilton guy has got some serious potential, even though it was already pretty clear before this race. But anyway, this image is just, a legendary one, really, in Formula 1 history, when Hamilton's first on the podium, Alonso's second, and yeah, the look on Alonso's face is like, damn, this guy got me again. And what this obviously leans into, right, and the obvious clapback for Hamilton is like, well, look, if Alonso's saying that all it takes is to beat your teammate to win a championship, and that's relatively easily done, and therefore, if you win a title in that manner, it has less impact, then, obviously Hamilton's going to be like, well, look, if it's so easy to beat your teammates, then how come you couldn't beat me as a rookie back in 2007? So, yeah, I thought this was pretty funny, to be honest. Of course, the whole discussion is, it's not exactly null and void, but if you look at Hamilton's career, it's not like also he's just had to beat his teammate every year anyway. Yes, there have been some years where the Mercedes was by far the quickest car and he just had to be the best Mercedes driver to win the title, but there was also years battling with Ferrari, and it's not like he had to, drive against bad teammates, right? I mean, Nico Rosberg, probably one of the more underrated drivers, really won, of course, in 2016 in equal machinery, as you guys are, I'm sure, aware. So yeah, what do you guys think about this? Like, I thought it was funny that Alonso said what he said, that he tried to backtrack, and then I didn't expect Hamilton to come up with a clapback like this. He said no words, but simply just tweets this image out to say, basically, I own you, son. I'm living rent-free in your head type thing. So, I mean, I don't know what you guys think. I'm sure people are going to fall on either side of the equation. This one, whether Alonso has a point, whether Hamilton is right to kind of clap back, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's funny. I don't think Hamilton, previous, like maybe PR Hamilton wouldn't have said this, but now he seems to be in this kind of late career villain arc stage when he just doesn't care anymore, and he's going to tweet that out regardless. I thought it was pretty entertaining. Few comments we've got to make before the Mexico City Grand Prix tonight. Firstly, Q2 was crazy yesterday. Top 4 drivers separated by 14 1,000ths of a second. Q3, though, bit of a different story. Verstappen gets pole by quite the margin, 3/10 over the second driver in George Russell. Then he was up a 5,000th ahead of Hamilton. Hamilton was talking, though, I think all the cars in the top 3 teams had some issues. Hamilton was having some sort of engine oscillation issue. Ferrari, it was certainly the case for. There was also like an electronics issue for Perez, who was struggling with any of his telemetry data, so he ended up P4. But interesting for Hamilton, because the past 2 seasons, I think in the last 6 times that we've gone to Mexico, the winners have come from P1, P1, P2, P2, and then the last 2 times it's been from P3, P3. So wonder if that trend will continue and Perez is going to win for P4 or something. But yeah, P3 can be good because you get the drive off the line, you get the slipstream in the 800-meter run down into turn 1, and being on pole isn't usually optimal, but if you've got a Red Bull that's a rocket in a straight line, it could be okay at the end of the day. Ferrari, though, had a shocker yesterday. P5 for Sainz, P7 for Leclerc. They had some real issues in Sector 1. They lost about 0.4 of a second just in Sector 1, both drivers. And yeah, I think it was due to the curbs. Similarly, the car can't really run on the curbs particularly well. And also the power was not looking good. I think their turbocharger, if you guys saw the onboard of Sainz, the Ferrari engine just sounds horrible. It's just whining away, and maybe it's always sounded like that. But the turbo was not having a good time. It was overheating. They had to therefore turn the power unit down, largely due to the altitude, which affects stuff like this, but maybe just a general problem anyway. And that they had to change the downforce levels and change things around a little bit. They went a slightly more higher downforce version for qualifying, but yeah, didn't help Ferrari. So yeah, shocking qualifying from them, to be honest. Split in the end by the start of qualifying, Valtteri Bottas, who was the pole man here last year, but he ended up P6 Bottas in an Alfa Romeo. Remarkable stuff. I don't think it was a major upgrade for Alfa Romeo at all that they really brought in Austin, but certainly a significant one, and Bottas was able to put it P6, splitting the Ferrari, so that's crazy stuff. Unfortunately for Bottas, though, his engine is he's certainly going to explode by lap 18, so look, we'll see how it goes, of course, but generally the Ferrari engines have been struggling here, and it wouldn't exactly be a surprise to see certain engines just conk out around Mexico, given what usually happens around this track. It's pretty tricky with the lack of air for overheating issues, and teams are already suffering with certain problems. Can Mercedes do a job on Verstappen? It's going to be challenging to overtake, but one thing that is true is that with 3 DRS zones, staying within the DRS range is certainly achievable. There's 3 areas on the track, and also Mercedes are quick in Sector 2, so there's a possibility that if they can keep up with Verstappen in his DRS, then they can still have a strategic opportunity there. It's going to be difficult to overtake Verstappen on track. The Red Bull obviously is very quick in a straight line, but potentially pit stops, undercuts, overcuts, maybe let's say in a theoretical world, turn 1 is clean, which is going to be, surprising, but let's say it's Verstappen, Russell, Hamilton into, 1, 2, 3, maybe the Ferraris are close, maybe they're not, who knows what happens behind with Perez and such. But if it is a pretty big DRS train, which could happen around Mexico, then the option is there to maybe pit Russell early and then leave Hamilton late to have have both options there from a strategic perspective, which they might not have Red Bull if Perez can't quite get into the fight. But it'd be good to see Perez in the fight, fighting for the win in front of his home crowd if the issues are resolved. Quick comment on this as well, because I don't know if you guys watched last week's Notebook, but Ted Kravitz was kind of giving, because Brad Pitt was there, he was giving like a script of how the race maybe could have gone, and he was talking about like how if you were writing a movie script, how it would look with Hamilton getting robbed of his championship and then kind of coming back to beat the young pretender. Turns out that wasn't the case. So I thought Kravitz was kind of just making light of the situation to some degree, like writing a movie script in his mind that maybe you guys agree with or don't. But turns out that clearly Verstappen and his crew are not happy with those comments made by Kravitz and Sky Sports, to such an extent that Verstappen is refusing to speak to Sky for the time being. So Sky, regular Sky Sports, Sky Germany, Sky Italy, he's not going to talk to them or do any Sky interviews. So, I mean, yeah, I thought that was another pretty spicy thing to begin the Mexican Grand Prix. And the one thing that Verstappen is also going to have to watch out for into turn one is big George Russell behind him. And, George Russell and turn one instance have been a big talking point over the last week or so. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.